This hour with a Fox News alert, and Hunter Biden is set to give a deposition today in a defamation lawsuit brought by the owner of that Delaware repair shop where Hunter reportedly left his infamous laptop from hell.
All right, this comes as the IRS whistleblower makes stunning claims about who actually decided whether the president's son would be charged with a crime.
Mark Meredith joins us live from the White House with the latest. Mark?
Ainsley, Steve, and Brian, good morning to you. A lot to get to this morning because the whistleblower who you were just talking about is raising a bunch of different claims about how this investigation into the first son played out. And it's likely lawmakers are going to be paying close attention to what he had to say. He spoke to Fox News last night, and he says he's coming forward not out of political malice.
This is simply the facts are the facts. And in my past, I've voted for both D's and R's, and politics are irrelevant when I'm conducting my job.
Gary Shapley, who you just heard from right there, says the timing of this case matters quite a bit. He says the tax fraud investigation has dated back close to 10 years now, that the government's been looking into payments that were made to Hunter Biden when then Vice President Joe Biden was in office, and that he believes while the government has learned a lot, that it's unlikely the IRS will ever get back what it's actually due.
To this day, there's still around $400,000 of unreported income from Burisma in 2014. Hunter Biden was told by his partner Eric Schwerin that he needed to amend his returns, and he never did. So, D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office declining those charges, David Weiss requesting special counsel authority and being denied, and then the statute of limitations then expires in November or December of 2022. So those years are gone. And there's no way to recoup the money from that Burisma income.
Shapley says the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, who led the investigation and who is claimed to have had total authority on the scope of this case, did not also have final say on how this entire investigation and case ultimately played out.
I witnessed this personally, and he started with he's not the deciding person on whether or not charges are filed or not. They went to the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office in March of 2022. And they presented this case to them. At the same time as that was occurring, they requested discovery from the agents, which is a typical step when they're getting ready to charge. But after that occurred, he was no longer looking to charge in that district.
You can bet many Republicans up on Capitol Hill were listening to that interview with Bret Baier last night. They've asked the U.S. Attorney in Delaware to answer their questions by next week. House Republicans still also floating the possibility of impeaching the Attorney General Merrick Garland over the way the Justice Department has behaved over the last 2 or 3 years. As for President Biden, he continues to deny that he was involved with his son Hunter's business dealings, even after some newly released text messages appeared to indicate that he was at least nearby as these deals were being worked out.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't. I don't know.
Were you?
No.
The president emphatically denying that he was anywhere close to these text messages or as these deals were being worked out. We'll see if he has a little bit more to say. He's going to be heading up to New York for a few campaign fundraisers. He's doing one interview this afternoon, and we'll see if he talks more about what's going on with his son. Steve, Ainsley, Brian, back to you guys.
Yeah. So, Mark, I know it's a little complicated, but there's, it's kind of a circular firing squad in Washington right now because David Weiss, the U.S. Attorney for Delaware, said, I'm ultimately not the decider. Merrick Garland said that he was the decider, Mr. Weiss. And then you've got the guy who's the U.S. Attorney for D.C. Apparently, according to Mr. Weiss and what he told the agents, he said, it's going to have to be Matthew Graves, and he will not allow me to charge in D.C. Everybody's saying it's somebody else's problem.
Well, I think that's what we're going to find out more from lawmakers, because they're going to say we need to actually pinpoint where the decision tree was on all of this. And you're right. There are going to be questions raised by this whistleblower, who's one of two whistleblowers working with Congress right now, in terms of what led with the investigation itself, kind of where was the timeline, who decided to do what and when. But in terms of the White House's point of view here, I mean, they've just repeatedly said that this is out of their hands, that they're not involved in this whatsoever. But those questions, I think, are going to be more pointed towards Garland and DOJ overall.
Mark, do you know, was Jamie Raskin also in those meetings with the whistleblower we now know as Gary Shapley? Was he also in the original meetings? Because he doesn't seem to have a problem But even as you see these interviews come out on CBS and on Fox, obviously there's a problem. Like, did Jamie Raskin hear this stuff?
I have not heard anything from Raskin's office yet. I was traveling yesterday, so I apologize. They may have weighed in, and I just may not be aware of it. But obviously, if there is anyone brought before Congress, it's going to be a bipartisan inquiry, and I would imagine that Democrats would have strong reaction either way. But when it comes to what the White House has been saying, they've just said this is out of their hands. But the president, when he stopped to take questions yesterday, he almost seemed like he was caught off guard by the question that was coming his way, and you saw him push back quite a bit. I'll be curious whether or not maybe we see a stronger denial when the president sits down for an interview today.
And you saw the press secretary turn down an appearance on The View. Do you think that had anything to do with this?
No, I think that had to do with the writer's strike that's been going on. I believe that they are trying to show solidarity with the writers' union because The View is still going out live, but obviously they don't have the writers that they would traditionally have.
All right, Mark, thank you.
They have writers?
Yeah, they do.
They do. Back with more.